What Princess Leonor is really expected to do when she represents the king. What happens when Princess Leonor walks into a room where everyone was expecting the king? The cameras turn toward her. Officials stand. The ceremony begins. And suddenly, the future Queen of Spain is the person representing the crown. But here's the question most people never stop to ask: what is Princess Leonor actually expected to do when she represents King Felipe VI? Is she simply there to make an appearance? Is she expected to speak for the king? Can she make decisions on his behalf? Does she temporarily receive royal powers? Or is something much more carefully controlled happening behind the scenes? The answer is fascinating because representing the king is not the same thing as replacing him. Princess Leonor is the heir to the Spanish throne, but King Felipe VI remains the reigning monarch. So when Leonor represents him at an official engagement, her role exists within a carefully structured system of royal protocol and constitutional boundaries. And those appearances may be more important than they look, because every time Leonor steps forward, she isn't merely attending another ceremony. She's practicing for a future that could eventually place the entire Spanish crown on her shoulders. So today, we're going behind the scenes of what Princess Leonor is really expected to do when she represents the king and why these moments could be some of the most important preparation of her life. Chapter 1: The difference between representing and replacing. Let's start with the most important distinction. Princess Leonor is the heir. King Felipe is the monarch. Those are two completely different constitutional positions. When Leonor attends an event on behalf of her father, that does not automatically mean she has inherited his constitutional powers. She doesn't simply become queen for a few hours. She doesn't suddenly acquire every authority belonging to the king. Instead, she is performing a representative role. Think of it as carrying the king's presence into a particular setting. She might attend a ceremony, meet important guests, deliver prepared remarks, present an award, visit an institution, or participate in an event connected to Spain's national life. Her presence communicates something important: the crown is represented here, and that symbolism is powerful. Chapter 2: Why Leonor's presence matters for a future monarch. Simply being present can have enormous significance. Imagine a major national ceremony. King Felipe cannot attend. Instead, Princess Leonor arrives. The audience knows who she is. The media knows who she is. And everyone understands what her position represents. She is not simply another member of the royal family. She is the person first in line to inherit the throne under the current constitutional succession rules. That means her appearance can carry a message of continuity. The institution is here. The crown is represented. And the next generation is participating. For Leonor herself, the event is also a learning opportunity. She gets to observe how senior officials interact. She learns how formal ceremonies operate. She experiences the pressure of public attention, and she becomes increasingly comfortable representing Spain. Chapter 3: The first thing she must do: be prepared. One of the most important responsibilities may happen before Leonor even arrives. Preparation. A major royal engagement does not simply begin when the princess walks through the door. There is likely a briefing process. She needs to know who she will meet, why the event matters, what organizations are involved, what subjects may come up, what the schedule looks like, and what is expected of her. A future monarch cannot simply arrive and improvise everything. She has to understand the context. If she is visiting a military institution, she needs to understand its significance. If she is attending an international event, she needs background on the participants. If she is meeting young people, she needs to understand what the event is about. That preparation develops one of the most important skills a future queen can possess: situational awareness. Chapter 4: The second expectation: represent the institution. When Leonor represents the king, she is not simply representing herself. She represents the Spanish crown. That means her behavior matters. How she greets people, how she listens, how she speaks, how she handles unexpected moments, even how she moves through a room. Royal protocol may look effortless from the outside, but much of that apparent ease comes from preparation. A future monarch has to understand when formality is necessary, when warmth is appropriate, when to speak, and when to listen. The goal is not to make Leonor seem robotic, quite the opposite. She needs to appear natural while remaining aware of the significance of the institution she represents. That is a difficult balance, and every official appearance gives her more practice. Chapter 5: The speech. Sometimes, representing the king means speaking publicly, and this is where the responsibility becomes even more visible. A speech from Princess Leonor can attract enormous attention. Why? Because people aren't just listening to a young woman, they're listening to the future Queen of Spain. Every sentence can be analyzed. Every phrase can become a headline. That means Leonor has to learn an important royal skill: how to communicate without turning every statement into a political intervention. Spain is a constitutional monarchy. The king has a defined constitutional position. The heir must also understand the limits surrounding public royal communication. Leonor's speeches therefore tend to focus on the occasion, shared values, national life, institutions, service, education, culture, or other appropriate themes. And with every speech, she gains something that cannot be learned from a textbook: experience. Chapter 6 The people she meets. Another major expectation is interaction. When Leonor represents the king, she may meet officials, military personnel, students, athletes, artists, scientists, diplomats, community leaders, and ordinary citizens. Those conversations matter. A future queen cannot understand Spain by sitting inside a palace. She needs to see the country, hear different perspectives, visit different communities, and understand the concerns of people with completely different lives. This is one reason public engagements can be so valuable. They expose Leonor to realities beyond her immediate environment. She gets to see what people are proud of, what they worry about, what they have achieved, and what they expect from their institutions. In that sense, representation becomes education. Chapter 7 The military responsibility. Leonor's military training adds another layer to her preparation. As heir to the Spanish crown, her future constitutional role includes important connections to the armed forces. She has therefore undergone military education involving Spain's different military branches. When she attends military events, the expectations can be different from those at a cultural ceremony. There may be formal protocol, military honors, specific forms of address, ceremonial traditions, and a strong emphasis on discipline. Leonor has to understand these environments because, one day, she will have a central constitutional relationship with Spain's armed forces. So when she appears in uniform, it isn't simply a fashion statement. It communicates preparation for responsibility. Chapter 8 What she cannot simply do. Now let's address the part that often gets misunderstood. Can Princess Leonor make decisions for the king simply because she is representing him? Not automatically. Being the heir does not mean she can simply exercise all of the king's constitutional functions whenever he is unavailable for an engagement. There is a major difference between representation and constitutional substitution. The Spanish constitution contains specific provisions governing the crown and also provides for a formal regency in certain circumstances. A regency is a constitutional mechanism. It is not the same thing as sending the heir to attend a ceremony. So if Leonor represents her father at an event, viewers should not automatically interpret that as the king has handed his powers to Leonor. That would be an inaccurate simplification. Her role is much more specific. Chapter 9 Why the boundaries matter. Why are these boundaries so important? Because constitutional monarchies depend on clear rules. The monarchy is not simply a family business. The king has constitutional responsibilities. Government has political responsibilities. Parliament has its own role. And the judiciary has its own constitutional position. The heir exists within that framework. So Leonor's public preparation has to teach her not only how to represent the crown, but also where the boundaries of royal authority lie. That may be one of the most important lessons of all. Power is not simply about knowing what you can do. It is also about understanding what you cannot do. Chapter 10 The pressure of being watched. There is another challenge that most people don't see. Leonor is constantly being observed. Her clothes are analyzed. Her expressions are photographed. Her speeches are discussed. Her relationships are speculated about. And her smallest mistakes can be amplified. Now imagine adding the responsibility of representing the king. The pressure becomes even greater. She has to remain composed, even if something unexpected happens, even if the schedule changes, even if the cameras are everywhere, even if someone asks a difficult question. A future queen needs emotional control, not because she isn't allowed to have emotions, but because public leadership requires the ability to remain calm when everyone else is watching. That is a skill learned through experience. Chapter 11 Learning from King Felipe. One of Leonor's greatest advantages is that she can observe someone who already understands the role. Her father, King Felipe VI. He has spent years representing Spain at home and abroad. He has met presidents, kings and queens, prime ministers, military leaders, business figures, scientists, athletes, and ordinary citizens. Leonor can observe how he handles these interactions, how he listens, how he speaks, how he manages formal situations, and how he balances tradition with modern expectations. There is a unique educational relationship here. Felipe is not just the king, he is Leonor's father. And one day, the lessons she absorbs from him may become part of her own reign. Chapter 12 Learning from Queen Letizia. Queen Letizia offers another kind of example. Before becoming queen, Letizia worked as a journalist. She understands public communication in a way that is particularly relevant to the modern media environment. She knows how quickly a sentence can become a headline. She understands the importance of preparation, and she knows what it means to live under constant public scrutiny. For Leonor, this experience can be valuable, because future queens don't just need constitutional knowledge. They need communication skills, they need to understand media, they need to connect with people, and they need to remain composed under intense attention. Chapter 13 Why these duties are preparing her for something bigger. Every time Leonor represents the king, she is gaining something: confidence, experience, public recognition, institutional knowledge, communication skills, and perhaps most importantly, judgment. Those qualities will matter when she eventually becomes monarch. Imagine the difference between becoming queen after years of avoiding public responsibility, and becoming queen after spending years gradually learning how the institution works. The second path creates continuity. Leonor is effectively learning the job before she inherits the title, and that is why these appearances matter. Chapter 14. The moment people may stop seeing her as a princess at some point, something interesting may happen. The public may stop thinking of Leonor simply as King Felipe's daughter. Instead, they may begin seeing her as a future national leader in her own right. It may happen gradually. A speech here, a ceremony there, an international appearance, a military event, a moment when she handles an unexpected situation with confidence. Then one day, people may watch her and realize she isn't just being prepared for the crown anymore. She's beginning to look ready for it. The transition is already part of her public story, but it is likely to become even more visible as her responsibilities grow. Chapter 15. The day she won't be representing anyone. There is an inevitable destination at the end of all this. One day, Princess Leonor will no longer be representing King Felipe. She will inherit the crown according to Spain's constitutional succession. On that day, the distinction between heir and monarch will disappear. The person who once stood beside the king will become the person everyone else stands beside. But that transition won't happen because she has gradually collected royal powers through individual appearances. It will happen through the constitutional process of succession. Everything Leonor is doing now is preparation for that eventual responsibility. And perhaps that is why her appearances on behalf of her father are so fascinating. They allow us to see the future monarch before she becomes the monarch. Final. What Leonor is really learning. So, what is Princess Leonor really expected to do when she represents the king? She is expected to be prepared, to understand the event, to represent the crown with dignity, to communicate appropriately, to listen, to meet people, to follow protocol, to remain composed, and to understand the constitutional limits of her position. But beneath all of those responsibilities is something much bigger. She is learning how to lead without yet being the leader. She is learning how to represent authority without possessing all of its powers. She is learning how to speak for an institution while developing her own voice. And perhaps most importantly, she is learning what it means to carry responsibility before she carries the crown. That is why these appearances matter. Because one day, the question will no longer be what happens when Princess Leonor represents the king. It will be what happens when Princess Leonor becomes the queen? And when that day comes, the lessons she learned during these seemingly ordinary royal appearances could become some of the most valuable preparation of her entire life. For now, she remains the heir, the Princess of Asturias, the daughter of King Felipe VI. But every time she steps forward to represent the crown, the Spanish public gets another glimpse of the future. A future in which the young princess will no longer be standing in someone else's place. She will be standing in her own. What do you think? Should Princess Leonor receive more opportunities to represent the king before she becomes queen, or should the royal family keep her official duties limited? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to follow Princess Leonor's journey from heir to future Queen of Spain, subscribe, because every royal appearance today could be preparing her for the moment that changes everything.